and good morning, and welcome to day 2 of the Raisin Gummy Bear and Naked Egg Lab. So today what we're going to do, or what I'm going to show you in this directional video, is kind of our results. I'm going to also give you kind of an up-close and personal look at our samples. We'll record the mass of these samples or put it on camera so that you can kind of get a feel for what the lab actually looked like or what it was all about in class. And that will be that. We'll talk about our data, we'll talk about our differences, and then you'll have some time to work on the questions. So if you look carefully, these are our results. This is object A, day 2. This was the naked egg in distilled water. This is object B, which is your naked egg in corn syrup. Object 3 was the naked egg in cola or dark soda. Object D is the gummy bear in water, distilled water, and object E is the raisin. So just to kind of give you a quick little view, everything changed, surprisingly or not surprisingly for you. Everything changed. Everyone looks a little different. Now we're going to collect some data to see what in fact was our change or what our differences were. So let's do object A. Yesterday, the mass of object A was 78 grams. If you look at the observations, you can tell it's still an egg. It's still a little bit more flimsy, but it is still an egg. So let's record the mass of this egg. Carefully. Okay, so that's 84 grams. So yesterday it was 78 and today it's 84. Object B, and I will actually, let me bring the camera over really quick. What's very unique about object B is that up at the top layer, corn syrup is very thick, it's still liquid, but up at the top of this solution, it's kind of unique because there's a big layer, kind of a dividing layer of water, or what seems to be water on the top, and then the corn syrup on the bottom. Now, when I take this egg out, which I'll just place my camera here real quick so you can see, it's kind of unique. You may be surprised by what you see. I can barely get it out. Okay, let me move it. What do you know? What do you notice? What do you notice? Do you see that? Very different from what you saw in object A. So let me put this on the scale. And this is 52. 52. Yesterday, it was 91. Today, it's 52. Okay, so I'll put that back. And we'll obviously be changing and cleaning all of these samples. Next is going to be object C, which is your naked egg in cola. And look at what you see. Okay, so let's tear it. Let's get the mass. Obviously a huge change. Okay, and this mass is 88 grams. Yesterday's mass was 82. Today's mass is 88. And then next, if you look here on object D, this one is going to be a little tricky. I know that I showed you before kind of what it looks like. But if you look carefully, and I do my job carefully, hopefully, you notice anything? Let me give you some contrast. Do you notice anything? You definitely should in comparison to what you had yesterday. Whoa. Okay. This mass today is 18 grams. And then last but not least, and let me put this off. Last but not least is going to be our raisin. Yesterday's mass was 1 gram. Today's mass is it's 0. But it should be, you should at least at the very minimum, based on what you can see, I'll keep it as the same as constant. Okay, so let's put that back in. Okay, so really quick. Oh, sorry, I should have showed you. This was your object E. Okay, so that's your object E. So a lot of changes definitely happening overnight. Those changes, in some cases, were very substantial. In other ones, it wasn't as major, but there was definitely some changes occurring in our Raisin Gummy Bear and Naked Egg lab. So if you look at the lab, continuing, we collected our data. Data table number 2 was where you're going to record the mass in grams. And again, just to refer back, you're going to go back into the Google Classroom post and look at the actual data from everybody's class or from yesterday and now today so that you have accurate numbers that match your peers in Google Classroom. You need to add the qualitative observations of all of these objects. That's why I gave you kind of up close and personal view of the objects in those solutions. So please make sure you fill out data table number 2. Data table number 3 was going to be scale. You're telling me the differences in mass. So from day 2 to day 1, you do day 2's value minus day 1, and then if it's positive, that means it increased in size. If it's negative, it decreased in size. That would be a negative change. Continuing in your lab for day 3, which I'm going to go over now, the instructions for day 3. There's 5 different drawing conclusions, Google Draw illustrations that you'll see. You're going to drag the appropriate arrow with where did the water go? Did it go into the object or did it go out of the object based on what your results from data table number 3 would be. Okay, so you're going to edit them and then delete whatever arrow you did not use. And then you're going to do or work on your discussion questions. Your discussion questions, again, are telling me, number 1, were your predictions correct? Were your hypotheses correct based on what you would originally guessed on day 1? What concept was illustrated in this lab, diffusion, osmosis, or active transport? Which one had the greatest increase in mass? Which one had the greatest decrease in mass? And then for each of those respective questions, tell me why. Think about where did the water go in a couple of those objects. And then area or water in general, molecules like to move from an area of what to what. The conclusion section of your lab is going to be basically you're recalling what you did in a sentence or 2. You're explaining what the lab experiment was all about. You're reflecting upon your findings. So if something didn't go according to plan, what should have occurred, okay, or what happened? For example, if an egg broke or the gummy bear, it cracked into 2. That's kind of where you're going to reflect on that. And then lastly, discuss any uncertainties. Was there something that you thought would happen and didn't? And then tell me why. So that's your conclusion section that I'm going to need you to do at question number 9. Last but not least, there's an extension activity that I'm allowing all of my students to participate in. And it's basically doing this model experiment that we did the past 2 days and do it at home. Figure out something that might have a membrane, whether it's real or artificial, and put it in different liquids and see what kind of change happens, if there will be a change that happens. You're going to make a Google slideshow with 4 slides, one being the title slide, name, date, period. The second slide being pictures of your experiment, basically your before and afters. Slide number 3 will be your 3-sentence summaries explaining your observations or the changes that you noticed. And then number 4, the slide number 4, again, this is not mandatory, this is extra credit. It's a 2-sentence summary based on what you learned. So in this directional video, I have shared with you the results of the day 2 experiment or our teacher demo in here. Definitely changes occurred, and hopefully by doing this lab, it kind of makes you think outside the box a little bit about cell membranes and being selectively permeable and where these molecules were moving both into and out of the cell. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your teachers. Your teachers always love to help. Thank you so much for watching.